Gender roles in family during the Civil War in Georgia. The war between the North and the South took place between 1861 and 1865, shaping the nation that America would become through a series of brutal battles. Issues other than the institution of slavery were affected by the war between Union and Confederate forces. Gender roles throughout the nation were permanently altered because of the split in families occurring as men were drafted to war. Traditional views on men, women, and children were challenged as men were absent, leading women to take on more responsibilities and therefore establish a more independent identity. Children, once able to enjoy the simple pleasure of youth, were now asked to take on added responsibilities, shortening their childhood years and propelling them into adulthood. Before the war, men were the providers for the family, the head of the household. They would work in the fields and then return to their homes, where it was the woman's duty to have dinner ready and the chores done. Men's roles consisted of working to provide for the family and taking charge as a dominant figure within that household. The draft, however, dragged many men away from the comfortable life they were used to living into the war violence. Away from their families and the work they were accustomed to, these new days were filled with fighting, disease, and harsh conditions. Men felt the societal pressure to fight in the dangerous war, many not even supporting the cause they fought for. The draft pushed men into abandoning their previous lives as husbands and fathers to becoming soldiers. Women were affected drastically as their sole providers were sent away, forcing them to expand their daily roles. Without a husband to work in the fields or tend to the livestock, women began to undergo more physical labor as they added the men's responsibility to their previous duties. Along with working in fields to sustain the family, women were also expected to cook, clean, manage the slaves, and look after the children. The shift in roles is demonstrated in the change in women's clothing throughout the war. The detailed dresses meant for the indoors gave way to plainer working clothes that women could wear while laboring outdoors. In order to survive, they had to take over their husband's work, and their success made it difficult for them to return to being dependent wives after the war ended. There were also many women who directly took part in the war effort, serving as nurses or spies. They found themselves developing new skills and having jobs which displayed their abilities as women would work and make a significant contribution to the war. These additional duties led to a shift in identity as women began to see themselves as more independent beings, capable of doing more than ever before, therefore setting up for the women's rights movement, which would take place in the future. Children also began to take on more responsibilities to help their mothers shoulder the added work. Before 1861, children were able to enjoy their childhoods fully, but the Civil War brought a dismal change to those in their youth. With those under the age of 19 making up almost half of the American population, young boys were drafted off to war and pressured to fight. Those left at home were burdened by the new duties that they were forced to uphold. Many who went off to war and didn't take up arms served as musicians, drummer boys ranging from 19 to 15 years old who gave orders loud enough to be heard. Mothers were consumed by worry as their husbands and children fought in a dangerous alien world. Those who stayed with their mothers labored in the fields, tending to livestock and crops, and helped run family businesses. All the while, the children would continue attending school and taking care of their siblings. Through all of these tasks, enjoyment was scarce, but entertainment was occasionally found in books, plays, and toys. Overall, children's roles morphed from innocence to adult responsibility. The young had more duties than was fair and were unjustly forced to experience the terrors of war. The Civil War drastically altered more than the politics in America, permanently changing the American family structure. Women began to recognize their independence while their husbands were absent at war, and children's youthful years were cut short by fighting and responsibility. In Abraham Lincoln's words, it is easy to see that under the sharp discipline of civil war, the nation is beginning a new life.